Hello, this is Us is Awesome, and welcome to my rant review. And this time I'm reviewing We're Going on a Bear Hunt, which has just been on TV recently, and as far as I know is brand new, and it's an animated short special for Christmas, even though it's not that Christmassy, that was made by the same people who made Snowman, so that's obviously got everyone's attention and is the big focus of the thing. And I wasn't expecting much. I was hoping that it was going to be good, but I wasn't expecting much because I really don't rate the Snow Dog, which is what they did after the Snowman. I really didn't like that one. Because it just felt like it totally undid the whole point of the Snowman, and it made it too politically correct and sickeningly sweet. You know, like all the other kids' shows, it wasn't special or magical anymore like the original one. So yeah, and they kind of got the same feel with this one. I think they get a bit better than they did with Snow Dog, because that was just insultingly bad. But I mean, because it was its own unique project, it couldn't ruin the Snowman franchise, so I guess it was okay. But it was based off a book. I haven't read the book itself, but I was told it was based off a book, and you can tell, because there's some of the lines out of nowhere in the show suddenly are very structured, like they are from a book, and they repeat themselves. So suddenly you realise that that's something that's from the book, and it's rather clashing. It's really obvious which parts have been improvised and which parts have not. And every time that it comes up to a part that's been scripted, it feels like it's really forced. I mean, it's rather nice when it has the ad lib, and rather sweet and rather relaxing, you know, like the old Snowman, the bits which are just a bit silly and not really much to do with the story, just having a bit of fun. But then suddenly it comes up to a scripted part and you're like, ugh, you just have to drag through this bit. So it's not really enjoyable when it does the parts it's meant to, although you know it has to. So I think it could have adapted it maybe a bit more to make it a bit more interesting for animation, rather than just directly copying what the book had done. But yeah, and some of the changes they made to do with the animation don't make much sense either. You see what I mean when I get through it. But basically, this story is about a bunch of kids at different ages, young and older. There's like a teenager one that's like really way older than the others, and the other one's about 5 to 3 or 2. One of them might be 8. So you know, because one of them's 5-year-old, one of them's 8-year-old, and one of them's 2 or something. So yeah, that's their ages, and the parents leave because something happened to one of the grandparents' car, and they need to help them. So they say, "Stay at home, stay safe." So they leave, and the parents are out of the picture. Then the young kids suddenly decide that they want to hunt for bears, and the teenager goes, "Okay," like an idiot, and they start running off, chasing after their dog, wherever their dog's going, without a lead, to try and find bears in the middle of nowhere. So I'm sort of like, you're in the middle of the country, you haven't got your parents, they're not home, you have no way of contacting them, you're in the middle of the countryside, and you're just going wherever your dog wants to go. And like, this is not a good plan. And even if you do find a bear, you know, what are you going to do when you find a bear? It's not very safe. So I'm sort of like, this is a great idea. But, you know, as for the sake of the story, I'm like, whatever. So they go along, and they come across some grass. And this is where you start to get the repetitive lines, where they say, "It's tall grass. We can't go under it. We can't go over it. We must go through it." So they say that in a very structured way. So I'm like, yeah, I can see which part there's a book here. But already I'm thinking, that's a bit pathetic. They go, "Oh no, tall grass." Well, yeah, it's grass. You just walk through it, you idiots. And then they finally walk through it and they go, "Oh, thank God." So it's like, they're a bit thick. So that's a bit... One of the things which makes you just go, ugh, when in a kid's show where the characters have no idea what they're doing, and there's something really simple solution, and yet they suddenly can't do it because they need to make the audience feel involved. So they say, "What do I do?" It kind of feels like that. So it is cringeworthy, but it is for kids, so you can give it a break. So they go through that, and then they go through a river, and they say it again. They go, "We can't go under it, we can't go over it, let's go through the river." And I'm there thinking, actually, you could go over the river, or you could go around the river. So you're wrong, but okay. So then they go through the river, and for some reason one of the kids is scared of fish. So then they go around and they find some random snowstorm. No. They go through a forest. And the dog comes over this forest and they find some actual bear marks. And I'm like, okay, at this point, when you're well away from home, you're going into a dark forest and there are actual bear scratch marks on the tree. That's the sign to go home. But no, they decide to keep on going because they're idiots. So then they keep on going through this forest. Then they eat sandwiches or something, and they talk about how their grandpa's dead or something, which comes out of nowhere really. There was at the beginning, and then it was remind you at this point, and it's sort of like it does come out of nowhere really. It's sort of like, what has this got to do with anything? It sort of feels like they just thrown it in there just so it sounds like it's being autistic, but really it isn't, because it's nothing to do with the story, and it has no sort of implications of death or anything in the story. There's no real teaching for the kids of what you're supposed to do. It's just, Dad's dead. Okay, carry on. That's literally what happens. So I'm like, okay. So then they carry on further, and that's when they go through the forest. So they've gone really far. They go through the forest. And then they have this random snowstorm, and I'm there thinking, it was sunny before, why the hell is there a snowstorm? So they're thinking, well, okay, maybe it's winter, and the snowstorm's just a sudden change of weather, which can happen, especially in this countryside area, which they are. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can accept that. So then they almost get lost, so I'm like, yeah, you're geniuses. And they get through the snowstorm, and then they're thinking, isn't this the time to go back? Nope, let's go through the snowstorm, plough through it, and then they end up at a beach. And I don't know about the book, but in the animated one, it shows them having crabs and stuff in the beach, and I'm like, there wouldn't be any crabs and stuff on the beach and all sunny and everything. Oh, excuse me. If it was winter. So what kind of season is this? What season is there where there's crabs and sunshine on the beach, but there's a snowstorm round the corner? What is this, like Narnia? This makes no sense. So I'm like, okay. So they go on the beach and they find a cave, and then they go through the cave, they get lost and separated. So then this 8-year-old girl finds a bear, and for some reason the bear doesn't eat her. The bear has a cold, and she gives it its scarf, and she feels sorry for it and makes friends with it, feeds it a honey sandwich or something. And then the adult, the teenager, does the only sensible thing that he's ever done throughout this whole story, and he goes, oh shit, and grabs her out of the bear's arms and legs it. So he legs it away from the bear with her, and she's like, no, he's a friend, and she's like, nope, we're going home. So they go through all the things, and yes, the snowstorm is completely separate from everything else, so they just run back through the snowstorm, which is for some reason perpetually in the middle of all the sunshine. So they go through the snowstorm, through all the grass, and through all the river, and all that stuff, all the way back, and the bear follows them the whole way home, and then until they slam the door closed. So then they hide in the bed, and the teenager one's like, we're not going on a bear hunt again. And I'm like, damn right you're not. Idiots. So then the little girl sneaks out of the room and tries to let the bear in, because she's a nutter. But then it turns out it's the parents and the grandparents that have had to come back home, not the bear. So they're like, okay. So they're there, and the kids tell them about it, and the parents are like, oh yes, very good. And I'm like, parents, shouldn't you be worried about the fact that they went searching for bears? You know, like, and they went out when you weren't there, and they went in serious danger. I'm like, okay, you should be like yelling in their face. You should be really angry with them, not like, oh, okay. So these are very bad parents for a start. But then the grandma has a conversation with the little girl, and the little girl says, I'm sad. And she says, well, yes, we are sad sometimes, but we need sad times to remember the good times. And I'm like, okay, that moral came out of nowhere. And then they're like, let's have a dance. So then they danced, for a very short time, and she was sad again, and she went and looked at the window. She started singing something, and then it went over to the bear looking in the sky, and then it walked off back into the cave, and that was the end. And I was sort of like, what was that meant to mean? What? It sort of felt like it was trying to be, it was like, oh, it was like, well, this amazing ending of this amazing story, and I'm like, no. A bunch of kids almost got killed, the story. That's what I saw. Some bunch of kids almost got killed, and their grandpa died at some point. The end. That's the story. That is the whole thing. I've summed it up for you. You don't need to watch it. So it's sort of like, I presume that the bear was meant to represent something, like the bear was meant to represent the grandpa, or something like that, but it was not well portrayed at all. It was not well portrayed. It thought it was artistic, I think, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. So, what have I got to say about that? Yeah, like I said, it was overly pretentious. The animation was nice, as it always is, but that was about all there was that was redeeming of it. The actual story itself was rather bland, rather cheesy at times, even though it did make me laugh a few times how cute the kids were. It was charming, but not really very interesting. If you're going to watch something, you might as well watch Snowman, it's better. And I wouldn't recommend it much. So, that's all I got to say about it. Thank you for watching. See you again next time. See ya.